And at some point, if I start sneezing, having to blow my nose again, I'll just I'll just randomly assign control of the presentation to one of you. Okay, so welcome, welcome everyone to the January 2025. I think that's the first time I've said 2025 out loud, so I need to get used to that. Yeah, the Microsoft 365 Modern Management Meetup. So yeah, first one of 2025. The topic, I guess, like the main things we'll be going through today, the Ignite announcements. So I guess the thing that hopefully I removed any references to whether anything was generally available or in preview, because things may or may not have changed over the last 2 months since some of those announcements were made. So we'll let Steve be the Steve and Kwok can basically drop in chat for certain things and say GA, yay or nay to let us know. So welcome everyone. My name's Mark O'Shea, and I'll let Steve and Daresh just actually put their hand up and wave and say hi. And Jeroen's not able to. Jeroen sent us a message about having to go to some training about a tool.
Yes.
And
we offered to provide the tool.
Yeah, we were quite we're actually fairly well behaved in the way we responded or didn't respond to that comment from him. So I guess just with for today, just for the agenda, I think we do actually have some new people in here today. We've got 3 events in February to announce. Actually, I think we may have announced them a little bit before. I think a few of you might already know what they are. And then for the Ignite announcements, I've broken some of these out a little bit further in the presentation. But I guess here, because we probably don't need to talk about everything that I've included in the slides, but I've got it so that you can jump in and actually, I probably should take control here for a moment.
He should.
And actually jump into this. So basically, I guess just the thing here is that if people just want to sort of scroll ahead in the slides to see if there's anything of note that is like kind of like a burning issue or something that you really need to sort of get more information on versus some of the random things that are in there. So I just sort of tried to keep it mostly focused on things that the topics that we generally talk about. But obviously sometimes some other things do creep in here. Now, the other thing here is that like it's not a comprehensive list of all of the things that were announced at various points during Ignite. It's just a matter of some of the selected ones that the product teams said, hey, here are some of the more important things that we want people to focus on.
I don't see the magical item that has to be on every deck nowadays, Mark, when we're talking Microsoft.
Well, we could include Copilot Plus as part of the Windows 11 conversation if you really want to.
We should.
Hey, am I guessing correctly?
Yeah.
Actually, I think no. I don't think there's any Copilot. So I did actually, one of the labs that I had to proctor over at Ignite was on some of the Copilot Plus ones where building small language model apps and then running them and seeing the NPU light up. So I was getting more excited about seeing the NPU get activity in Task Manager than I was about anything else in the lab. But that's, I guess that's just me being quite sad and enjoying that kind of thing versus what the actual solution itself was.
I'm surprised you didn't try and mesh them all together and have them all doing crazy NPU dances across the room.
Yeah, we could have done something distributed in there. But basically they had to so the service team for those specific labs had to order. Basically, they had to sort of bring 50 of the new laptops, etc. in to actually run those labs, because the standard lab machines aren't going to be weren't the ARM devices. So basically, it was like all these brand new machines that had just been unboxed and and basically are probably going back in storage until the next time they're used for another event. Okay.
Who's to say?
So yeah. So okay. So with that, I guess just for any of the people who are joining for the first time, like if you just either want to unmute and do a quick introduction, or alternatively, if you're happier just dropping comments into chat, that is a perfectly valid way to introduce yourself as well.
Good day.
Oh yeah, and yeah.
I think quite a few new names for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and yeah, when Bhavin joined, it confused the hell out of me because one of the people that I've spent time with over the last couple of days in Bangalore was also Bhavin Patel, and it's like, why on earth are you joining this? You don't need to be here. And yeah, we quickly sort of realized that no, it's not the same person. Okay, so welcome Kusbu as well. So yeah, so okay, so we actually got a few people here today. So let's sort of jump on in then, and just for the we've got John, JP, John coming in as well there, and we've got just in terms of upcoming events, probably just the main ones that we want to focus here on is, obviously if you're not based in Australia, then these ones probably aren't going to be all that useful for you. But we've got, or Jose, who's on the call, and Steve are organizing a 3-city workplace ninja tour next month. So basically I won't say the East Coast, because then someone from Brisbane will complain and say Brisbane's part of the East Coast. So we'll call it the lower East Coast. Yes. Capitals is probably the least offensive way that we can position that without upsetting anyone.
East Coast.
Yes. So I guess for this, just if you are able to attend, what have we got? So Tuesday the 11th in Melbourne, Friday the 14th in. Are they the right dates? Oh yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Monday, Friday the 14th, and then Monday the 17th. Now for the Monday the 17th, what we'll do is pretty much, I don't think it was after Workplace Ninjas. I think we piggybacked on top of
Experts
Live one time. So we'll do a similar thing here, rather than sort of trying to organize 2 different things in Sydney within a week or 2 of each other in the same month. It just doesn't make any sense.
With the same people.
Targeting a lot of the same people. We might as well just sort of basically extend the beer and pizza into our session. So make sure that you jump in and register for that one. And otherwise, if you're thinking about attending, but you're not sure, or you're going, oh, okay, I won't know anyone there. Look, just let us know. Generally in person, we're quite friendly. So don't worry if you don't know anyone. We'll make sure that you get introduced to a few people, so that you don't have to sit there and sort of go, I wish I had someone to talk to for the day. If you're in that situation, we'll just sit you next to Steve, and you'll have someone talking to you all day. Is that fair, Steve?
No, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. And just want to call out as well that Mitch is going to be presenting an awesome session on PS Up Deploy Toolkit. So you don't want to miss that as well.
Yep, and Tom's going to be presenting in Canberra as well. So
that's right.
So we got 50% or 60% of the Australian contingent of the Australian Ninja in this call.
Yes. Well then.
Yeah, so I guess probably just one of the things that, and this is not something that Steve or Jose have asked me to say, but something that I'll say because I know some of the things that make these kinds of events a lot easier is if you are thinking about attending, don't wait until the last minute to register. Just so that way, making sure that like when they're, and this is sort of just more as a background as being involved in, too many events over the years, is the like decisions that need to be made about whether or not events run generally aren't made within the last couple of days. So the earlier that we can start seeing people, committing to being there, etc., that's going to make Jose and Steve, a lot happier and way more comfortable. So at least it's not any of those three cities that are the ones that are the more problematic cities where people don't like to register for the last minute. I think it's like Adelaide. For years we had issues there where people would put it in their calendar, but they wouldn't actually register for events. and then they'd complain when the event was cancelled 2 weeks beforehand. because we wanted to avoid all of the hotel and the venue fees and travel costs, etc. So just if you are in that situation where you can register early and basically just as a show of support, please do that.
Yep, we very much appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay, so if you haven't already, if you want to sort of just skip ahead through the slides, just to see if there are any particular topics in there that you're looking at going, oh, either like that looks interesting, or that's something that is critical for me, that's something that might change some of the deployment plans that I've got, etc. Just sort of drop some of those things in, just so that we know either what we focus on or where we'll sort of spend some time, what some of the things are that we can skip over. So I've kept it fairly broad, just to sort of try to target a few different roles that people may have. But just take a look at it and see if there's anything in there in particular that is of interest to you, and we can just sort of bounce around the topics or bounce around the slides as needed. Or if Steve's got a burning desire or Aresh, so I've created 2 slides for Aresh that he hadn't seen prior to joining the session. But
I just saw them.
Yeah, but
I magically saw them.
Yeah, I think you probably had a good idea of at least some of the things that would be on them. And
you don't have any of my topics that I want to talk about on slides.
I can add them.
Really upsetting.
I'm comfortable with that, and I have no concerns at all.
Yeah. Okay. Were there things that you wanted to cover?
No. It's just more highlight. I was just going to call out if you're using Windows 11 kiosk mode, make sure you do all the latest updates, because some really important updates have come out recently that will fix a lot of the problems you're facing.
And so originally this event was going to be in person, and you would have had the opportunity to see a Windows 365 device in person, but because we're not doing this in person, I'll have to save that for next month. And notice the wording that I used. I did not say Windows 365 link. So don't misinterpret what I'm saying at all. What I have is very disappointing in comparison. So so I was hoping I could sort of do a bit of a bait and switch, but I'll save that for next month.
I hope it's something that you've purchased in your super secret location at one of the local markets that has it just etched on the cover.
I didn't purchase it.
Okay.
It was given to me.
Okay.
And I grabbed a few more of them as well. They're very high. They're like, even though they're not high value items, I'm sure some of you will sort of issue physical challenges to each other in order to obtain them from me. Okay. So that will be part of next month's activities after people have had a few beers.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Ideally, outside of the Microsoft Office.
Yeah, we'll introduce a physical element to giveaways.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, I guess then, seeing that no one sort of dropped any topics in yet that I can see, do you want me to Aresh, do you want me to sort of throw to you first of all for the Win365 and AVD stuff?
Yep. Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Or if you want to take control of the presentation and just skip ahead to those slides, that's fine with me.
Okay. Do I have to ask for control?
Nope.
Yeah. No, I think you should be able to take control, maybe.
I did move it on my screen. I'm seeing Win365. Are you guys seeing Win365?
Not yet. Look, I'll jump ahead. That's no problem. I'll jump to it.
Okay.
There we go.
Cool. We're on the Win365 screen now.
Am I presenting right now?
Yeah, somebody is. I'd say Mark.
No, it's got take control on my. So whoever's moving their mouse cursor around is in control.
Okay, so I am probably in control. Looks like.
Okay.
Because it's because I've got the option stop sharing.
Yep.
Okay. Yep.
Awesome. So let's kick it off. I would like to reverse the biggest announcement, which is at the bottom as the first thing I would like to talk, the Windows 365 link device. Essentially, it's this tiny little box from which you can connect directly to your Windows 365 and Azure Virtual Desktop and Azure DevBox, and your apps, all of them from that particular device. Awesome little device which you can probably carry in your bags. It has a unique version of Windows on it, is what I can tell you. It is called as Windows 365 PC. Steve, is that correct?
I've not actually touched it. On the physical are you talking the physical device or are you talking the
on the physical link device?
So physical device, you don't need to worry about the operating system that's running on there. Just that it is running an operating system that can connect you to Windows 365. It's not designed for user serviceable parts on the link device itself.
Yep.
That's the easiest statement around that. I can't confirm what's the operating system that's running on it because I don't know.
Right. It is a very stripped down version. Another awesome thing about that device is like the boot times are quick. Like we had the device in the demo. Essentially, you power it on in like few seconds, and you if internet is there, and if it's pre-connected to that internet, you're just in. Another awesome thing about the device, if you get disconnected, it automatically reconnects. Or in fact, if you plugged it out and plugged it back in, it does a immediate reconnect to your Windows 365 desktop. Other highlights, you can probably plug in 2 monitors. Essentially, it is targeted more towards an office space where you have a Windows 365 Cloud PC, and there's a small box in your office, setup where you are connecting into your Cloud PC from that. Essentially, that device on itself, all the updates and everything and the management can be carried out through Intune. So that's a very unique perspective. And it's pretty light on management. Once over the air updates would come in and it can be managed on the fly. Pretty cool looking device. Any questions on that device? Essentially, it is like it connects you directly from that device into your Cloud PC.
So did you make an effort to go and read any of the comments around any of the sessions or announcements about it, just to see how badly people were choosing to misinterpret what it was for? Because that's one of my favorite games is seeing how badly people can look at something, completely misunderstand it. And at some point it's like choosing to misunderstand what it is in order to make a point that doesn't apply. It's people looking at it going, for that money, I could go out and get one of the new Apple devices or something like that. And it's like, I don't think you're quite understanding the purpose of this. I don't think you've been around the world of thin client devices in any way, shape, or form.
That's correct. So I can assure you that it's a very lightweight, I just didn't want it to go down this rabbit hole, which Mark has led us to. But anyways,
that's the stuff I enjoy.
Yeah, so I would I don't know, show of hands through the icon. How many of you have actually dealt with thin clients ever?
So this is going back a hell of a long time, but it was the old beige Wise devices.
Okay, so I saw four show of
clients.
hands. Awesome. So now all the show of hands. How terrible was it to 5 show of hands? How terrible was the management piece to keep the life cycling of the device? Essentially, it was a different vendor skill. Like you literally had to form a person in the team to become a subject matter expert to use that particular centralized software management to do the firmware upgrades, to do that upgrades. And then if it got pricked, you had to send someone physically to reset it and go on from there. So essentially it takes all that heavy lifting out and gives you all the management and the power of management from the same tool, which you are actually managing the cloud PC as well. So it's like a all-in-one win-win. Not only the hardware device is getting managed through the same cloud centralized management software, even your virtual PC inside is getting managed through the same software. So it's like 2-in-1, like from the same software, you're managing both layers. So I say it's a big tick in the box. Definitely there is a big interest in the market for this. Pricing wise, it's debatable. So that's where
But you've got to say that because you're Dell.
Yeah. So, but I was just going to say, for pricing wise, talk to your partners about it, and you might be able to get some good discounts.
Drop Aresh's name, and Dell will look after you.
Absolutely. And moving in this list, the second item which is worth highlighting and is really a game changer after the hardware release, which we spoke about, is Windows 365 Frontline Share Mode. And essentially, this is your non-persistent, again, show of hands, how many have dealt with non-persistent, the true non-persistent desktops of the past? Ooh, this seems like a little unique one. Not many raise of hands. 3, 4. Okay.
I know at least one other person on this call, 2 other people on this call that have dealt with this in the past, but that's okay. I'm going to not name and shame them.
Gotcha. So essentially, this is the technology which was essentially made very popular to get some optimization on storage. Because remember, the traditional VDI was very storage, CPU, memory intensive. And essentially, to gain optimizations from back in the day, many vendors came out with many layering technologies, many optimization technologies to cut down, like cloning technologies from one image, which is the master. You cloned out many images and so on and so forth. And then whatever was the end product was a non-persistent desktop. However, the Frontline desktop is a non-persistent version of a Windows 365 desktop. However, it's not stopping you to go ahead and do redirections. It is supported. though there's not much talks about it, but using Intune OneDrive known folder redirection, you can enable file sync in from that desktop. However, remember the desktop is non-persistent, meaning, yes, Steve.
Just do files on demand. Don't turn on file sync in Windows 365 frontline shared mode. Use files on demand because they're all inside the Microsoft data center. And it's going to do the 10 gig backbone and it's going to write super fast. The only time you're not going to have issues with OneDrive not syncing theoretically is if you're doing really, really, really big files that are changing a lot. Files on demand will do everything you want.
Absolutely. And that's like the de facto practice. However, I still remember someone asked Scott this question in the session, and hence I wanted to answer that. Yes, that is the most preferred and best practice way to do it, but that's not stopping you from doing the file share in Azure method. But remember, it's too much of an admin overhead if you went down the latter part. So don't do it. Stick to on demand. And as Steve is saying, it's going to give you much more better results, much more better optimization because it's all in the Microsoft data center. So Frontline is a game changing for, so the license from memory is 1:6. So the original Frontline license, which we've covered in the past, and we might do future sessions as primer on this, like a deep dive with demos, is essentially 1:6 license. So you probably could go 6 users with this. And essentially, if at log off, the only big takeaway for anyone who's planning for this queue is at the end of your session, your desktop is destroyed or deleted, I would say. That way it goes or does a factory vanilla reset, again, like a brand new cloud PC provision desktop. So at the end of the session, it will delete everything what you've done in that session. So from a security posture point of view, this is a good desktop if you have some use cases around doing vulnerability management and other things. So take into account the biggest key takeaway at the end of the session, your data is lost or flush. Hence, the on OneDrive file sync will come in handy, and make sure you use that for your files and important.
It deletes the user profile. So
Yep,
it's using
that's
share
right.
PC mode.
Absolutely.
To answer your question there, Damien. So the nuance that I'm going to reiterate there, though, Resh, because I think that your statement of your files get deleted, while it's correct, is also very scary. Because if I sit there and say your files are deleted and you're using OneDrive on files on demand, your files are deleted. Did you delete all my files on OneDrive? So any file that's on the device that isn't already synced or replicated elsewhere is gone, is the simple answer.
So the biggest example, because I've already gone down this path with many users over the years, don't create a C:temp folder and dump things there, and then expect that OneDrive is auto syncing. OneDrive, usually the admin, the way it would be set up is the common folders, documents, desktop, downloads. Those would be favorites, would be your common things which would be synced automatically. But if you go in crazy paths in your desktop and start storing things there, those would be gone for sure.
Yep.
So don't do all.
Altero has a question for you in the chat.
Absolutely. Yes, please. Whatever you do, it's a non-persistent desktop.
What was the question?
Any apps installed will be removed.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so all applications that get installed during that session, I assume
Yes.
they'll be removed, right?
Yes.
So
this is not a SKU for that kind of a thing. But imagine if you were if you wanted something like a crash and burn sandbox, then this is an ideal place to even do that.
Just to tease out a scenario for you, Aresh. Say, for example, you're a bank and you're wanting to have 5 line of business applications on there and use the 1 to 6 deployment. Do I deploy my applications via Intune to that device, or do I have a gold image that I spin up that then it reverts back to that?
Please don't go down the custom image path. Microsoft is highly begging admins and groups, don't go down the rabbit hole of custom images. Use gallery images. And the way to deploy your applications, make sure use Intune and use store or other quick wins, which if the application is not that internal and not available, then it's a separate conversation altogether. But if it's a common app and there are thousands and thousands of apps on the store, just use that. It's a much easier future life cycle as well. Like even updating of apps becomes easier if you've deployed through that. So please deploy apps through Intune. So whatever I said is your best practice and first choice. Now, corner cases, same bank scenario. Now you have an in-house application. Still use Intune to deploy that app. Now do it through MSI or traditional way or any other way. That's a separate question depending on how old or legacy that app is.
So just out of interest though, Aresh, is every time that computer comes up, does it Intune need to reinstall that app, or is the app going to be persistent and the user profile just disappears?
It is assigned to the machine. So essentially, part of the provisioning itself, you can get apps installed preemptively before a logon happens. So that takes care of your app scenario to the cloud PC in the backend itself, provided you have to do it right. You have to assign that app to the machine, not a user. That's
so long as it's installed into program files, it's happy days.
Yes.
If it's a click once application, you're going to be reinstalling it every time because the profile is blown away. Okay, cool.
Indeed.
No, that's a good nuance to understand.
Yep. And typical use cases is not for someone like you have to think through the use cases and the usage of such a desktop in your environment. In fact, the whole frontline use case is a awesome save. Like the original frontline was a great cost saving where you had intermittent workers who are not 8 hours working continuously, need the desktop for 4 hours. And that's why frontline is a great savings. Now, this share mode is another full-on exercise where you can save quite a bit of cost, provided you match the use case properly. Don't tie the wrong use case to the wrong SKU. That's when the problem would occur. Hence, evaluate the use case properly and then map this shared mode cost-saving SKU to whatever demand the enterprise has. And anything important, last thing, the customer lockbox. Customer lockbox is typically a feature which you use when you have to work with Microsoft. So for example, if you have an issue on your cloud PC and you open up a support ticket, Microsoft will raise, the support engine is going to ask you, can I get access to your cloud PC? And it comes through an approval workflow and you say yes. That's how he gets the access to the cloud PC to work and fix your issue. And that too, it is for a specified. So it's not like you give him access once and it sits forever. The request that they would probably put in and will come part of your workflow is going to be for few hours or couple of hours while the support assistance is needed from support, mainly used by support when you're working with Microsoft. And it's integrated into Purview. So that whole workflow and configuration is through Purview. That's about it from Win365, and moving on to Azure Virtual Desktop. I think the biggest key takeaway out here is app attach. I think that's a game changer. Once again, show of hands, how many of you worked on some app unifying technology, hint, hint, app volumes kind of technology where apps would sit inside a container kind of a thing? Yeah, lovely. Oh yeah, a couple of them. That's cool. So this is essentially like a container where you probably get all your apps delivered in an Azure Virtual Desktop session host. So essentially you take a vanilla image of from the gallery and multi-session, let's say Windows 11 multi-session image you've picked. Now, if you wanted to deliver apps onto this, you had the Intune, but however, let's say this is a scenario where you want to deliver those apps in a container, your very custom oriented apps. So you could probably package those apps in a container, and that container gets attached to the session host. This essentially makes your life easier from a session host management perspective. And what I meant by that is that, like, imagine if you had installed apps within the image in case of a session host pool, then the life cycling of that particular VM is done on that image itself. If you've done it on a container, you can delete that image and attach that container with an updated version to the next session host pool. So makes your management of the session hosts for a large environment much more easier. So essentially it's a technology where quite a few other vendors had and have. So this particular version is taking a next step where it also supports third-party integrations. And essentially what I said, like app volumes. Now app volumes in an app attached scenario is also supported. So same is a liquidware as well. So that's the key advantage. Other than that, AppV, I don't want to talk about that. Does anyone have AppV in the scenario for app attach? You can. So in that container,
I want you to talk about AppV. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. No.
Don't do that.
I had the same reaction as you on this one. It was like, I understand why, but and I guess because there were some other other pieces around, AppV going into extended support as opposed to being deprecated, people are going to be hanging on to, I guess, like, I don't know, like maybe I'm wrong on this, but I'm just thinking it's people who've got stuff that they just can't be bothered moving from AppV because it might just be so out of date or so specialized or whatever that it's like, look, we're not going to bother repackaging whatever this thing is yet again. We'll just let it hit end of life whenever AppV eventually expires.
Absolutely. That's the only scenario. Don't do AppV. I think there are much more better advanced versions of packaging apps and modern ways of packaging apps. Stick to that. This is just like a tick in the box for massive legacy-based packages. If at all you had, you could probably use that. But other than that, these are the top two takeaways from Win365 and Azure Virtual Desktop. Anyone has any other questions or queries on that before we move on to other topics?
So I guess I've just got a general question on AppV for everyone is like, how many of you asked, like, or at least even if it's not an environment that you work in, maybe one that you've worked in recently where they still do have some AppV dependencies? Oh, okay, so I think yeah. So Arturo's hand just went up. Yeah.
Yeah, we still use AppV. App attached volumes, too many problems historically. Anything virtualized, FS logics, anything you virtualize, we're going to have problems from an app perspective.
Yeah, like, and the thing, and not necessarily saying that AppV was the answer for this, but like I'm surprised that we haven't really seen, like, outside of containerization of OS components on Windows, like I was just expecting containerization of apps as the way we would have been delivering apps to Windows at this point in time. But that was kind of like a thought process from like 5 to 10 years ago. But it was just something where I was expecting, that would be the way that we could just sort of quickly throw them on, remove them, etc. And I think for like when you look at AppX, I think AppX, or at least a lot of the original intention with AppX stuff was it was kind of similar in that you were just sort of dropping something in and then you could remove it without having to sort of do a bunch of cleanup in IL5 kind of nonsense. But it just doesn't seem to have had that same impact unless you're writing .NET apps and running them on Windows Server. That just seems to be where app containerization just really seems to have landed. Jose, certainly.
I would really like to understand a scenario why we would even have a package with AppV right now, unless it can't be converted.
I can tell you right now why you're going to have applications with AppV, because vendor X or organization X got the applications put into AppV 5 years ago, and they haven't got the budget to repackage them, or there isn't a new version from the vendor that isn't AppV.
Gotcha.
More often than not, you're going to see it in abandonedware. Or line of business applications where vendors have sat there and gone, we're going to lock to AppV, and that's where everybody's going, and we're going to focus on that. So it exists. It's nowhere near as prevalent as we would have expected when it was launched, but it's still out there and we still have to deal with it. And that's why you're seeing it's being called out here.
Understood. Yep. I think that's a plus. Arturo, I would say emphasis when app attach is still giving you issues. I think the key out here for the announcement is that there is now third-party integration, and there is a reason for that. Certain vendors have been doing that for many, many years back in the time, and they have slightly more superior technology to attach, detach, though it is using very similar backend technology, but just that the containerization of the app has been there for many years. Like, even if no plugs, but if you went on to my blog and if you went on to the app volume section, you would see many, many blogs and many, many issues, even with mature technologies. When you try to decouple an app in a container, what Mark is saying, it should work, but the reality is it is quite challenging, and your mileage differs from app to app. That is where the challenge is. It's not like a rule of thumb that this would work and that would not work. It is actually we would go down the path unless you do not containerize it. You can't determine whether it's going to work or not. So your mileage varies whenever you try to containerize an app.
Yeah. So look, our experience, it's very it depending on the technology. We've tried the Citrix versions, we've tried the VMware versions, and they both fundamentally have the same problems. Like, you know, it's more beneficial for organizations that don't have a packaging factory, they don't package their applications, and they sort of manually install and capture those in a sort of app volume that they can deliver. But if you've got a packaged application that you can just deploy and it's packaged well, I don't see the benefit or the overhead that comes with it.
True. In fact, if you're using Intune, the whole and if it's in the store, you should give that as the first choice to deliver apps.
Yeah, we wanted to use it with our non-persistent images, which makes sense at a high level, right? So you've got an image that just gets patched and with no apps, and then you attach all these app volumes to it based on the business units and personas that you've got. And theoretically, you know, that makes it very simple, but practically it was just a nightmare. And it only takes one app not to work and the whole model goes.
Makes sense. Okay. Any last questions on the Windows 365 and AVD topic before we move on to other interesting topics?
Sounds like everybody's happy.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess then,
Awesome.
What topic? So now it's back to choose your own adventure time. You've had a chance to sort of skip through the slides. Oops. Okay, I'll share that again.
Maybe just start from the top.
Yeah. Okay, let me just get that reshared. You said from the top, so
yep. Start again.
Okay, so one of the things that was quite amusing was there was a certain phrase that was used in multiple sessions at Ignite. The incident. And look, I thought that was like, it was handled well. You know, it's too public a forum for anyone to, you know, and even when we were sort of covering some of the things related to it, it was more of, what we were sort of talking about was more about, how do you prepare and recover from something like this, as opposed to, trying to, playing the blame game or anything along those lines. And basically, and this is where we sort of see those first, we see some of these initiatives coming up here, which is really around, okay, let's, we need to do better. We need to give people better guidance about rolling out updates. Because in this case, yes, it was an AV definition, or
it was an AV definition.
That caused it. But there could be other things that cause these issues. So for people who hadn't really thought about deployment rings for not just their malware anti-malware updates, but just updates in general, like people who haven't sort of really thought too much about deployment rings and recovery when things really hit the fan. That at least now that's something that is out there that people know is part of what they have to be planning for. But then, probably the other thing that came through from that is the third item on this list, that recovery for non-bootable systems. So being able to get things going just enough to be able to then start undoing the problem that was introduced. So you think about all the time that was spent the manual touching of all those different devices that had to be recovered. Like anything or even something minor can be done to at least kickstart that process is going to be a huge improvement. But anyone else want to jump in on these?
I think Mark's trying to get me to talk here.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if there was anything on here. Yeah.
So
probably, I think, yeah, sorry. Yep.
Which one do you think is the most exciting, in my opinion, and the one that's going to scare a lot of people the most? I think Tom knows which one I'm going to point to. No, the virus initiative is actually pretty cool, where we're sitting there and trying to get some new standards out. Admin protection. So how many people have heard of administrator protection? Yeah, I know you've heard of it.
Read about it today.
So admin protection is with Windows 11 24H2 and higher. There is an option where you can go and turn on admin protection that splits your authentication token. So today, when you get an authentication token and you sign in with an admin account, it always has the golden ticket associated with it. With admin protection, this gives you the ability to split that off into a separate area that is secured and everything associated with all of the really cool low-level security components that we're not going to go into because, well, we're going to be here all night if we go into that. But basically, to get access to that token, or the golden ticket with the additional privileges and permissions, you need to go and use a full prompt user account control or UAC prompt. And you'll be prompted for Windows Hello for Business to authenticate to make sure that you're using all of the good secure technology. And what it actually means, what it actually will mean is eventually, and this is why you can't just turn it on and why Tom's sitting there and smiling and nodding because he knows what's going to happen if you just turn it on, is if you just turn it on, all admin processes run as standard user until you force it to go and get the token interactively using your Windows Hello for Business prompt. So if you're running processes locally on the computer as an admin user account, silently to run scripts or automation or anything associated, they won't get the admin token. They'll only run in the standard user context. So this is part of the security initiative to basically restrict your blast radius to have to be interactive on the computer to be able to get the credential, to be able to go and use the credential. So I really hope a lot of customers turn this on, and they should, but there's also going to be a level of testing and validation that's required to see where they're going to run into issues and problems associated with it, because there may well be scheduled tasks that are running in the user context that need admin privileges that you're not aware of and things like that. So just want to call that one out. I think it's pretty cool. What does everybody think? Everybody going to go and look into it?
Yeah. This is targeted for users that are permanent admins on their device, right? Sort of.
Yes, and anybody that has admin privileges. So it's associated with the admin token, not the admin user itself. So it's targeted to the device. How will it work with PIM? It will, not PIM,
EPM.
EPM, that's the one. Thank you. It's still being defined. So that there is some open conversations around that and how that will work. But since you have to authenticate to get the EPM credentials and everything associated, it should work the same. It just doesn't have the Hello for Business component. So how's that going to validate? But the goal is to basically not have any standing admins, even if they are in the admin group, they don't have a standing admin credentials because the token's not attached until you authenticate in to have that access. Does that make sense, Altera?
Yep, yep. So this would replace that, right? So if you deploy these out to everyone, then anyone who's an admin would get this.
Yeah, that's an option. So it's a better together. It wouldn't be a replace.
Yeah.
Is the standard in this position that we're saying? It's always a layered approach of, well, yeah, there are going to be scenarios where you're going to have a standing admin that doesn't need to be granted access with EPM, I should say. Sorry, it's been a long day. But you're also going to have users that only have EPM access and runs with a Fire account or something like that. So there's scenarios in both ways, and it's still being defined how that's going to work perfectly.
Yeah.
Arish, you were going to say something?
Is this something from the Linux space?
Sort of. It's part of like what you would see with sudo.
That's
but a little
exactly
bit
what I
more.
was getting at. Is it something to like sudo kind of a thing?
Sort of, yeah. It's not exactly like sudo. That's why we're not calling it sudo, and we're not using sudo as the command line and everything associated, but it's conceptually similar. Is the best
Gotcha.
statement you're going to get out of me on that one.
Yep.
Makes sense. Yep.
Okay, let's jump to the next slide, because I think we've discussed the, so I'm just going back. I think did we cover smart app control stuff before? When we
No,
basically
but let's say we did.
Okay, let's save that for a future topic.
Yep.
Cloud trust, enable it.
Yes.
Get that feature. Okay, so Windows management at scale. Probably the thing that so for me anyway, the one out of these three that I think I've seen the most interested in is the config refresh.
Sure.
The question that I always have about the config refresh though is what's causing the configuration drift? Like that's always the question that I've got when people are like, oh, we need to sort of make sure we're always bringing things back. And this goes back to like just DSC in general. It's like, what is causing that? And why aren't we fixing the root cause of that? But then I know the root cause in some cases is because some people may have admin or greater than required permissions to do things. But that's the why can't we fix that kind of part of the conversation. But
everybody needs admin, Mark.
Yeah, I know. How else will I install all those things?
Exactly. Wow, Mark went quiet. And I think we broke him.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. So the config refresh. That's and I think when you're talking about the config refresh to anyone, probably the first thing to make sure that you're that you sort of include in that sentence is that you don't have to be connected to your management service for it to kick in. Like it's going to it's got what it needs cached locally, and it's going to apply that whether you're connected to the internet or you're whatever you're pulling your policies from. So that's something that kind of this, like if people just sort of read the top level bit without then reading the next sentence, that's generally one of the first questions that comes up about that. But I haven't seen too much about the Zero Trust DNS apart from the announcements. So I guess we can just say Zero Trust initiative extends further.
Yes, we'll go with that. And
then the final one, the Windows backup for orgs with Entra ID accounts. So I'll give you my opinion on this, Steve, and then I'll let you actually talk about it properly. My opinion on this is that people complained that the last Windows backup announcement that was made only supported MSAs. So now Entra, your work or school account is supported, but now I'm thinking that, a lot of organizations will then say, we do not want to use this. We don't want our users using this. Why did you add this? That's my short take.
Yeah.
Steve, over to you.
The goal is to reduce the time to value for getting your user experience back up and running. Is this going to sit here and back up things that are in your OneDrive? No. Is this going to back up your line of business application on day zero? No. It's going to back up your themes and things like that. So think of it as an extension of what's it called? The one that you enable.
Setting sync.
Yeah,
that gets pushed
one
into Entra ID storage.
Enterprise state roaming.
That's the one, enterprise state roaming. I was going to say the one that you enable at Entra ID level and you never think about ever again. So it's a more advanced version of that. There are additional components and data points that it's going to capture, but at the highest level, it's still very light touch intentionally, because how far down the rabbit hole do you go? Like, do we still need to back up all your iPhone backups that have been put into app data roaming? I'm sure everybody who has ever done roaming problems will be able to sit there and relate with me and understand exactly what I'm saying. So yeah, it's a work in progress. It's, if you've got, make sure you provide feedback online for it. If you're in any of the CCP programs, there'll be surveys floating around for them. So make sure you do provide feedback, test it out, have a look. The PG team or the product group's very interested for your feedback of what should be there, what shouldn't be there, how's it working, and everything associated. But yeah.
So
How's
just
that,
a general
Mark? Did
question.
I get myself into trouble?
No, good. No, that's good. No, so then the other question I've got as a follow-up question for everyone is around enterprise state roaming. Have there been any environments where there have been objections to leveraging that? Based on, not, or I guess not really, not sort of thinking about, why, but, just, have there been objections? What were the objections? Or is it just something that is just accepted as something that you should be doing to sort of capture that data?
I
guess the other,
it's an edge case of an edge case, but I don't think it's supported in GCC or GCC High.
yeah,
That's the only time where I've ever seen it discussed.
Yeah, and I guess it's also, and probably it's also something that is probably more top of mind for people who've got multiple devices or swapped up devices on a regular basis, as opposed to it being something that a user in an organization that's got a device for a 3-year period, it's not the kind of thing that would be top of mind for them. But for us who might be, jumping back and forth between multiple devices, we want a degree of consistency, in there amongst the, there will obviously, there's still going to be differences, but we want at least some consistency and, like, the underlying password synchronization, things along those lines. Okay, let's move to one that I think people will be much more willing to jump in and talk about. So I guess here, I guess now there must be public documentation, Steve, around, for people who don't have like M365E3 plans, that there's, like, I haven't actually looked to see if there's like the official documentation about what the non-E3 users get with the merging of Windows Update for Business into auto patch?
Of course, there's updated documentation on that, Mark.
Okay.
Why would we release it and not document it? But yeah, all jokes aside, yeah, we have unified Windows Update for Business and auto patch, so it's simpler. Auto patch is now available in more areas, but there's also an additional, I can't even remember the name that we put on the end of it, so I'm not even going to try and guess. But with your E3, you get a little bit additional with auto patch, which gives you the rings and some additional controls. But this is all around the safe deployment practices. So using auto patch will enable you to very quickly, very rapidly have safe deployment practices for your Windows updates. We look after where the devices sit and they get updated. Yeah.
Okay. And
hot patch, because I saw
Yeah.
there was a question around that earlier. So obviously, if the device is eligible for it, then yes, make it available. Has anybody here used hot patch or is using hot patch? Any insights, feedback that people want to add? Or
I've been really happy with it on servers. We lit it up for
Yeah.
the clients that we have on 24H2 and they've been good. It's just a lot of them aren't on 24H2 yet. It's still waiting.
yeah,
So
that's
Tom,
fair.
glad you brought this up. Like, obviously this is on the servers for much longer than what it has introduced on Windows 11. So how is your server experience? And like, if you could elaborate a little bit more for us as to, because I've been curious and I've seen it, but it's not that I've deployed it in prod. And hence I have this curiosity as you're using, I'm hoping in prod, how is the experience?
Yeah, it's been a little while since I've used it. And I think I did it through Azure Auto Manage, whatever the auto patching solution was at the time. But it worked really well. It meant we could get security patches applied pretty much immediately and then schedule a restart and downtime and all of that later on. Didn't have to like schedule downtime, wait 2 weeks to get critical patches applied.
Exactly.
Very interesting. And Steve, you've been hearing on the Windows 11 side how things are?
It's fantastic. Everybody should be using hot patch. So what I would put there, and Mark's glossed over it, but I think it's very important to realize this when you're doing your testing and validation, that hot patching currently is for cumulative updates. It doesn't include drivers and it doesn't include .NET. So if either of those require a restart, you will see a restart. We are working to make that work better, but just for disclosure, because it's a good gotcha that people get caught out with. They're like, but I enabled hot patch and it restarted every month. And it's like, yeah, there was driver updates. We don't have control of those. Or there was a .NET update. We don't have control of that. So, but we do have control of .NET. I lie. But yes, you get what I mean though. From a update restart required, we're working to improve that to make it so it's better. But it's a watch this space because the things with hot patching, especially in a data center. So Windows 365 is a really awesome use case for hot patch because it has a known set of drivers, it has a known set of OS components. So you can easily keep that on the hot patch and only restart your Windows 365 once a quarter.
Yep.
That's the goal anyway. So yeah, there's some value around that. And then the Windows Auto Patch AI integration in Security Copilot is awesome. Make sure you have a look at it. And that's all I'm going to say on it.
Yeah. So I think we probably should
say some stuff, but
yeah, we probably should do a Security Copilot. Like some of the new stuff that's lighting up in there is starting to make it a bit more useful for some of the scenarios we'd want to use it for. So it's probably worth us having a revisit of that at some point in the next few months.
Agreed.
including discussions around how to sort of deploy it in your own environments for test purposes and not be caught out when it's left running for too long and eats up a lot more Azure credit than you were planning on for dev and test purposes. Okay, what else? Next. So the reason why this is under Windows Developer Tools is this is how the announcements were made around these. So even though we can sort of argue that, especially for Winget, like WSL, I could kind of see where we could sort of make the argument in more cases where that's probably something that devs are more likely to use. I don't necessarily see Winget as falling into that same category. But I think though this just sort of is on the WSL side, like we've just seen the extending the management capabilities of WSL. So it's so rather than it just being this black box that sits inside of Windows, and with before we didn't really have any management interfaces over it. Now there's basically you've got firewall control, you've got these additional controls that are being listed in here as well, and also now like when you're pushing WSL out, if you're sort of doing it to target devs, now what we can say is, okay, we don't want to just enable and push WSL out to these particular users. We're pushing WSL out to them for particular tasks they need to perform. So we might as well start including the additional apps and packages and tools that they need as part of that deployment, as part of their WSL deployment. So that's a nice little bonus feature there. Anything from anyone on the Winget side? Anything from you, Steve?
No.
No. Okay. Winget, do it. Okay.
James has got a question there, Mark.
Okay.
I do. Just on the Winget side, what permissions do you need in order to successfully install a package? And how might it work, for example, with WDAC and any essentialate maturity?
Very good question. Tom, do you know the answer? Because I know you've probably dealt with this more than I have.
Yes, yeah, I have. So all the WDAC restrictions would apply. A lot of the Winget catalog is user space, so you don't need admin to install it. But if there's WDAC in play, you'd still be blocked by that. And then if an installer typically needs admin, still going to need it if going through Winget. It's just a good way to have a easy to approve sort of catalog that we work with, for example, of being able to give IT admins an easy way to go, okay, it's Chrome. Every version of Chrome is fine. You don't have to individually prove each version, and growing that circle of trust as well.
So just wanting to clarify there, though, with Winget as your delivery engine, if I have managed installer over the top and I'm deploying it via a Winget package via the store from Intune, does that get tagged as a managed install? Or is that because it changed and it's going down too many pipelines?
It does for most packages.
Okay.
If the installer is a bit funky and kills the process tree, it dies.
Yep.
The other downside with invoking Winget from Intune is you typically lose delivery optimization, so the download is a bit slower.
Yep.
Can be good for patching though, because Winget will detect what you have installed and automatically apply patches.
And is there any configuration that will allow you to use like a private repository so that you're not getting every application and every version?
Yeah, there is. It's pretty, okay. The official first party one is pretty hectic. I've worked on my own stuff that's a bit easier to work with. And just recently, a couple of weeks ago, they finally added auth to the actual download step. So previously there was auth on the metadata side of things, but the download, you had to have your enterprise apps public to the internet. So that's finally fixed. And then, yeah, you can host a fully private repository with only your approved stuff.
Perfect. No, I've used, is it Winget about 10 years ago it was about, or is that, I'm trying to
No,
think what
it'd
it
be
might have been. There
NuGet.
was obviously NuGet. NuGet was the storage repository though, was it not? Not the installer.
No, NuGet will have the installer components as well. So it's more for the
Okay.
developer tools and things like that. So
And then Chocolatey as well.
yeah, Choco. So yeah, they're all fun.
No, I use them extensively on servers and on personal workstations, but yeah, in a corporate environment.
Yeah.
Okay, let's jump ahead. Okay, so a few of the Intune announcements like aren't listed here, but there were things that were kind of just embedded into like things around, like new Edge or Windows features where it's like and Intune can manage these or Intune or your preferred MDM solution can manage these capabilities. But here were a couple of the things that were called out. And again, Copilot for Security was something that was that was called out in this case. So this is something that, as I said, we'll probably within the next few months, it will be worth doing a session on Copilot for Security. Because it works quite differently, or I guess each of the all of the copilots do things quite differently to each other. But one of the things that I really like about Copilot for Security is that you can delete it, redeploy it, and be up and running again within minutes because you don't have to worry about semantic index being generated or anything along those lines. It's just it's just looking at your logs that already exist. So you got some basically you don't need to run it constantly in a dev test type of environment. Or you certainly can, but at $4 US per hour per secure compute unit, that adds up really quickly. And I guess so then so other things in there, the updates to the hardware inventory catalog, and I think in this case that requires the advanced analytics capabilities off the top of my head. Any confirmation, Steve, on that one? I think it's the case, or Kwok, if you're still there.
I don't know what SKU's attached to it, to be honest.
Okay.
I'm not close enough. Kwok, are you aware?
Sorry, what I miss?
Is there any special SKU requirement for the extended device hardware inventory capability?
No. So it's part of core, but it does then hook into advanced analytics, which is mixed licensing anyway. So whether you have it in the suite or whether you have standalone, But no, the reporting, it's just basically a new profile that gets pushed down just so we can store the data in another location. And then because it's in another location, then we can basically grab it from the data lake and then do what we like with it, which goes into the Copilot and remediation and all the other kind of cool stuff. But no licensing requirements.
Oh, okay, cool. Excellent. Okay, so we've already covered Win365 and AVD. Now I guess on the Edge side, probably like the first one, just being able to push passwords into people's password capability or stored passwords so that they don't actually need to see the passwords that you're pushing out to admins that need to be shared, etc., or for people who need to access certain services. Just a nice way to push them out without people being given the ability to sort of just jump into Password Manager in Edge and take a peek at what the passwords are. So I guess it's a nice little way to start distributing passwords. And I think this is something that I think when you look at the Password Manager capabilities in Edge, this is the kind of thing that I've seen requests for quite a while for people who've used other password managers where they've been able to give people shared access. So I think this partially addresses some of those kinds of requirements. Okay. Anything from you, Steve, on the Intune management pieces of Edge?
No, I think it's cool. I was actually playing around with it in my test tenant this week. So when you're creating it in the Intune admin console now, you have the ability to see any settings that have been done via Intune, but you can also go and create your own policies for the Edge management service and deploy it from cloud or Intune.
And then the scareware blocker is just basically trying to do, I guess, more aggressive detection of things that appear to be, your computer has been infected, click here to scan kind of messages. So and I guess it's one of those things where because we're seeing AI in the term, the way that I interpret that is that it's not just looking at text. There's probably going to be some kind of computer vision type capability or OCR capabilities where it's scanning images, etc., as well, basically looking for text embedded in the image that would sort of be trying to bypass just the basic text filter keyword search kind of capability in there. What else did we have? Now I'll start off with the third one. And then if anyone's got anything to add to the first two, you can jump on in afterwards. But so with Entra, with the Copilot for Security piece, this is kind of like the delivery of some of the stuff that was kind of originally inferred or suggested, shown in screenshots where you'd actually see Copilot for Security icons like embedded in the Entra portal, the same way that you'd see it in Intune, for example, or different Defender portals or Sentinel. So now that stuff is actually, that stuff is starting to light up. So rather than having to jump into the standalone Copilot for Security experience and start putting in prompts for whatever you want to do with identity, now you can actually start working inside of the identity solution itself and start working with prompts in there. And it was just and Edge was just one of those ones where the experience there was like, not saying the capabilities weren't there, but more in terms of thinking about if it was an identity admin, they probably didn't want to then jump out into the Copilot for Security prompt experience in order to query identity. They wanted to stay in their standard identity portals and tools, etc. So it's really just sort of giving them, parity with what we're seeing in Sentinel, other places in the Azure portal, in your Defender for Clouds, things along those lines. So nice change there, but a lot of it, I guess, is the initial part there is really, it's just kind of like better UI integration with the portal that people are more likely going to be using. But then the second part of it is just now that they're sort of giving that integrated experience, sort of making it, giving you better starting points for prompts, etc., rather than just sort of leaving you in with a bare set of, default or suggested prompts in the Copilot for Security experience. But again, we'll jump in and we can take a closer look at some of that stuff in coming months. Anyone want to jump in on private access or internet access? Is anyone using them? Is anyone investigating their usage?
I have them applied to my work computer.
Yeah.
It's an interesting experience. It's quite cool. It saves the need for the VPN and everything associated, which I think is pretty awesome. Especially around the private access component. I'd be curious to know if anybody's thinking about looking at the global secure access / Entra private access, Entra internet access.
Is there much public awareness of these?
Yes, but not as much as I would have expected.
Yeah.
So does everybody
all
know
of
what
this-
we're talking about? Oh, sorry, go, Mitch.
No, I was only going to say, at least at my previous employer, we were doing a lot of quotes and scopes on SASE solutions, and some of them were Microsoft, and some of them were from alternative vendors. And I'd say it was pretty well known. Like it was, we were doing these mostly based on customers coming to us asking about this stuff, because people are wanting to eliminate their VPNs. And unfortunately, we did have a lot of customers that still had on-premise technology, and having an always-on ZTNA style VPN was ideal for them. Unfortunately, I left before those sales went through, so I don't know how they went. But at the very least, there was a sufficient awareness, and we were doing a lot of work in that space.
Yeah, nice.
And was it mainly enterprise customers at that who were looking at that, as opposed to like any kind of like SMB?
Yeah, it was mostly enterprise customers who were focused on that, because particularly around the VPN stuff and having that always on VPN. There were we had some smaller businesses that only had 30 or 40 people that were extremely security conscientious, and they ran their security like an enterprise, and they were also interested in it too.
Okay. Yeah, because I guess it's one of those things where you sort of think of who the customers are, or who the potential businesses are that would start looking at this. Like, yeah, you sort of go, okay, well, you know that they're the ones that have basically, probably had some kind of, you need to phone home before you can do anything else. Everything's getting logged through our proxies and our gateways, etc. So I guess it's, if you sort of think about who was traditionally deploying those kinds of solutions, then it's that didn't reach very far downstream.
It was certainly those customers. And we also had a lot of customers that were probably trying to reduce their vendor sprawl as well. So you might have had customers with Netscope and things like that, and wanting to bring that more in line with Microsoft, since they're predominantly a Microsoft house, except for these few third-party products, because Microsoft didn't have an offering at the time.
Yeah. Okay, so that's really the top line of, I guess, the different things that we, that were sort of like, that made it into like the official Microsoft documentation around the announcement. So there's a few more things in there. There were some things that I sort of just left out, just so that we didn't sort of have a ridiculous number of slides to go through. But I guess if there's like, as some of those things either hit GA, or we start getting some more updates on some of the things that are getting closer, we can definitely loop back and sort of actually revisit some of those and actually see what are they actually like in action, as they, or either as we start using them, or as they do become generally available. So this is the point where I'll stop the recording so that we can switch over just to sort of general conversation. So for anyone who who's got some other questions around maybe related topics, or work related things that they don't really want as part of a recording. So for those of you who haven't joined before, this is just where we sort of have a bit more of an informal conversation. So basically, we'll make sure recording has stopped, so that if there's stuff that you wanted to ask but didn't want a permanent record of it, this is now the time. So let me just stop that recording, and we can switch to that mode. And okay, so there we go.